5 minutes till top a podcast.
Thank you, 5. Hey guys! Welcome to the Curtain Call podcast. My name is Mallory.
And my name is Addie. And this podcast is about all things theater, from community theater to Broadway and everything in between.
Yeah, absolutely. We decided to do theater as our topic because we have both been involved in theater for so many years, and it has truly become a passion for both of us.
Yeah, and it's also how we became friends. So when we were looking at what kind of podcast to do, we thought theater was perfect because it's so special to us, and it's what brought us together.
Mm-hmm. So before we jump into all the different aspects of theater, we just wanted to give you a little bit of background, a little bit of rundown about both of our experiences with theater because they're both very different.
Right, yeah, so Mallory, I know you've been involved in theater for a long time, started when you were really young. So if you want to kind of go through your theater background, what you've done, the things you've been involved in, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like I've been doing theater for so long now. Mm-hmm. So whenever I was probably around 2 or 3 years old, was whenever I started doing them at church. And the cool thing was that my mom was the children's pastor during that time, and so she was our director. But whenever I say children's church musical, it's not what you're thinking of. We did a full hour-and-a-half production with scripts and music and transitions, and we had to be off book, and we had props, and then we even had a dinner show on Saturday the night before and then performed it on Sunday morning. So I started doing that again whenever I was 3, and I did it all the way up until I graduated high school. So I just feel I've been doing it for forever. But I got my, I guess I would say official, my official start in theater my freshman year of high school. And I absolutely loved it. So I took a theater class my freshman year, and I was really excited, and I loved it, and I think this is where I fell in love with theater for the first time, really. And then I was going to audition for our spring musical that we were going to have, but then COVID happened, and so it kind of shut us down, and so we weren't able to do that.
Yeah. Did they pick a show for that, or was there just no?
Yeah, so funny thing, we were going through a director transition during that time, so we were already behind schedule of what we should have been for the musical to happen anyway, so they didn't even pick a show. So I feel that made it a little bit easier, I wasn't attached to a show, and then I didn't get to do it. But yeah, and so that's my freshman year, and then COVID happened and it shut everything down, including school, and then my sophomore year of high school I did everything online, and so then junior year of high school, I came back, and that is whenever my love for theater really started to take off, and I was involved in it 24/7. So my first semester junior year, I took intermediate theater, and I was immediately involved in black box shows that we did, which was super fun, and I absolutely loved them.
Can you kind of explain what a black box show is for people who might not know what that kind of looks like?
Absolutely. So the room where we would rehearse theater and have theater class was literally just in this box room in our school, and it was painted completely black. And so the idea behind black box theater is you have lights and you have very minimal sound, but you don't have pipe and drape or anything on the sides. You just have lines on the floor to show off stage, and you don't really have a big huge set, and you have props. And so basically it's supposed to shine a light on the talent of your actors, but it's just it's really hometown theater type feel, and there's not a ton of pressure behind it. It is supposed to be off book and everything, but it's really just supposed to be a fun night for the audience, so not anything too big and elaborate.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so I started doing that my junior year, first semester, and again I was in a class, and so I went through all of that stuff, and it was just super fun. And then second semester junior year, they decided that they were going to do the Broadway musical Once on This Island, and I was super excited about that. I had never really heard about it before, but basically Once on This Island is a Haitian god take on what we know as The Little Mermaid. And so I was super excited for that, did all my research on the show and what it was about, and I decided that I was going to audition for Erzuli, and she was the goddess of love, and she wore this beautiful white dress and this beautiful headpiece that had lights in it, and it was just really cool, and I was like this is what I want to audition for. And so I did, and I got the role my junior year, which was awesome, and I was very excited. And so yeah, it was my first big musical production, and I absolutely fell in love with it through the process and the performing and just the theater community that you build from that. And so I got to do that my junior year, and then we closed that show, and then I didn't really do any theater throughout the summer, and then coming back senior year, I was a theater intern first semester for my director and my theater teacher. But then I also joined our RTS troupe, which is awesome, which is basically just like theater honors, and you get to travel to like regional, state, and the national levels. And so that was really awesome for me to get to be a part of. I was the social media coordinator for that, so right up my alley. I absolutely loved it. But yeah, and so then I also did Black Box Theater again my fall semester, and I was in a show called, the abbreviation for it is BABA, but it's Bad Auditions by Bad Actors, and it was just, you know, a cute little play. And then my second semester, I got to co-direct a show, and, you know, you all love this show, mostly, in the book. But I got to co-direct Charlotte's Web second semester, which was also, again, really great. And then ITS really started up second semester too, and so we started traveling that semester, which was great. And I took a musical dance piece because I've been dancing for 10 years, and so I did a musical dance number with one of my friends who's also been dancing for a while, and we did the song Friend Like Me from Aladdin, and we got to regionals and we passed with flying colors, and then they sent us to states and we were able to perform at states, and so that was awesome. So I had a ton of fun with that. And then in the spring of my senior year, I also auditioned for Into the Woods that we were doing, and so good. That was so much fun. I got casted as Cinderella's stepmother, which was really a push out of my comfort zone because Erzulie was a very delicate, light, kind character, and Cinderella's stepmother is very loud, very obnoxious, very sassy. She has a lot of like good comedic timing, and so I just liked being able to branch out through this role and really bring that character to life. I absolutely loved it. And then we closed that show and I graduated. But yeah, so theater was just, my entire life was revolved around it for a while. And then the last thing that I got to do in high school was it was just a little like black box show that we performed, but it was more of like a showcase thing. And so I got to perform to the song Mom, I'm a Big Girl Now from Hairspray, which was really fun with 5 of my other friends. And then I also got to perform the song Therapy from Tick Tick Boom with a guy that was in my class and one of my good friends. So it was just a really great time. And now I'm in college, and I came here and I was like, I'm gonna continue theater because I absolutely love it. And so I auditioned for Singing in the Rain last year and got casted in the ensemble, which was really great. I absolutely loved being able to do that. And that was the first time that I've been able to implement my tap dance background into a show, and so that was, it was so much fun. And then I also was a co-dance captain for that show, which was an honor for me to be able to do. And then we moved into this year, and I got to be the choreographer for Showstoppers for Sounds of Sondheim Spectacular. So that was also an honor for me because I've never really got to choreograph that many people doing dance before, and dance is something that I hold very close to my heart. So that was definitely an honor for me. And then now, moving into the spring semester, we're doing Anastasia. Yay! So excited. And that's coming together so well. And I have a named role this year, you know, as you know. So I get to play Marfa, who is very loud and obnoxious and very flirtatious. And so that's very exciting for me to get to play that character. But I'm also in the ensemble, and so I get to bring just a lot of different characters to life and tell an amazing story. And so that's also amazing. And then this year, I am the singular dance captain. Yay! Yay! And so that's also super exciting for me too, to get the chance to be able to do that by myself. It's pushing me definitely out of my comfort zone already, but I've absolutely loved doing it so far. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I knew that you had been involved for like such a long time, but it's cool that you've gotten to do so many things, from like acting to dancing, singing, directing even. Like, that's really cool to hear that you've like had your experience in all those different areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would definitely say that over the years, I've had amazing stage managers who have definitely carried me on my journey, and I've just become best friends with all of them, and so that's definitely been amazing. And so you are one of my stage managers that I've had along my journey, and I know that you've had so much time with like stagehand stuff and like backstage stuff. So if you would just like to give us a little rundown of your background and your experience so far.
Absolutely. So I kind of also got my start in theater doing plays at church. Yay. But they were a little bit different. I wouldn't call them plays so much as a theatrical reading, if you will, about the different things about Christmas time, things like that. So that's kind of how I got my start, but I didn't actually really view it as theater at the time. So I started really doing theater stuff in high school, my freshman year.
Yes.
My friend Wyatt, who I am still besties with today, he's very theatrical. And so he was like, I want to join the drama club. And so he asked me if I would join with him. And at the time I was pretty shy. And so I was hesitant, but I said, you know what, for you, I'll join. So we started doing stuff with our drama club. We were part of the first group to bring back theater at our high school.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we didn't do a play for the first year. We kind of were just learning about like improv and different stage directions and acting and just kind of what that looked like.
Yeah.
So that was our whole first year. And then our first semester, sophomore year, we decided we were going to write an original play.
Okay.
Called In Plain Sight. And it was a murder mystery set on a plane. Where the pilot died and all the actors who were, you know, either on the plane or were working on the plane kind of thing, had to figure out who killed him.
Yeah.
And so the audience was a part of the plane itself. So that was really cool. So we did that. We wrote it our first semester, and then because I was so shy and I didn't want to act, I did an audition for it. And so our director was like, I know what will be perfect for you. And she asked me to be the stage director, which was basically like stage manager.
Yay!
But I also got to do some director type things as well.
Awesome.
So I was like, absolutely, I'll do that. And I had a blast. And so going into sophomore year, we decided we needed to do a bit of a fundraiser. And so we wrote another kind of play, kind of like event called Cherryville High School Haunted Hospital.
Okay, nice.
So we kind of turned our school into a bit of a haunted hospital and then did kind of like haunted house tour type things. So I helped write that and then kind of helped put that together. So that was really cool. And then we decided for our spring show, my junior year, that we wanted to do an actual pre-written show. We didn't want to write one. We wanted to do a different one. So we decided to do Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yay!
So I got to help with auditions for that, and that was really cool. And because we didn't have as many people turn out as we needed, my director decided that she was going to cast me as Mrs. Beauregard.
Oh my gosh!
So I was about to have to be in a show, and I had never done that before. So
scary.
Really scary. But she was adamant, and so I said, okay, if you want me to. So we started rehearsals for that, and it was an incredible cast. But then COVID happened, as happened to you too. And so it shut down our show, and then we never got to perform it. So that was really sad, but it was a great experience to like start doing that. And then senior year, COVID was still kind of going on, so we didn't really get to do anything with that. But throughout my time in high school, I also got to be involved in some community things.
Nice.
So I did lights and sound for a couple shows at our little theater, one called The American Revolution in 40 Minutes or Less.
Wow.
And it never was 40 minutes or less.
Yeah,
it was always like an hour and a half. And then the other one was called Christmas Day. It was written by the person who was directing it.
Gotcha.
So that was really cool to be a part of. And then right after high school, I got to be backstage crew for Anne of Green Gables at our little theater. So that was a really good experience just to like be backstage, something I hadn't really gotten to do so much of up until that point. So that was really cool. And then coming into college, I knew I wanted to keep doing that. And I knew that SWU had a really good theater program and like did a lot of really cool shows. And so I asked if I could help out with the first musical my freshman year was Titanic. And I didn't know anything about it. Like, I knew about the Titanic, but I didn't know what the musical was going to be like. And it was incredible. It was so much fun. I made a lot of really cool friends. And so we did that. And then the beginning of my sophomore year, I was the stage manager for our Showstopper Spectacular, which is kind of like a cabaret style thing, you would say. And so that was really cool. So I got to do that. And then in the spring of that year, I got to be assistant stage manager for The Little Mermaid.
Yay, The Little
which
Mermaid.
was tons of fun.
Yeah.
And then my junior year, I was the stage manager for another Showstopper Spectacular. This one was All That Jazz, so it was all jazz music. That was pretty cool. And then in the spring, we did Singing in the Rain, as you talked about.
Yeah.
And I was assistant stage manager for that.
Yes.
And then now senior year, we just in the fall did Showstopper Spectacular Sounds of Sondheim.
Yay.
So it's all stuff by Stephen Sondheim, and so that was really fun.
Yeah.
And now we are currently working on Anastasia. And I am the stage manager for that because our stage manager is now our assistant director. So
Shout out Michaela Waco.
she's actually over here, so she's watching, live audience. But yeah, so that's been really fun, and I also run a theater camp in the summers for teenagers ages 13 to 18. And in the first week, they learn to write a play, and then they actually write the play. And then the next week, they rehearse and perform the play, and that's been honestly like incredible, like one of my favorite things, bringing like what I did in high school to other kids. And so so our first one was called The Next Bestseller. That one was about a writer who was trying to write his next best-selling fairy tale. The second one was called Rom Prom, which was a romantic comedy about a prom. So
that tracks.
Makes sense. And then the most recent one was called Haunted, which was a little more sad. It was about 4 kids who had just lost their parents in a fire and had to move, and then they find out that there are ghosts in their new home, and they end up making friends with them and like all the antics that happen. So yeah, that's kind of my history and all the things I've done. I feel like I've gotten to do a couple of different things. I really enjoyed them all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing about your experience and stuff. I really love to hear it. And I think I especially love to hear you talk about the camp that you get to do over the summer, because it's something that like you and Wyatt get to do together. So that's awesome. And it's just like you get to take everything that you've like learned over the years and then get to share it with kids who are growing up to be, you know, the next stage manager and the next performer.
Hopefully.
So that's very awesome. I love that for you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm sure you guys noticed that there were a couple of things in our list that were crossover events. So we want to kind of talk about what that looked like for us to do those together and how we work together in this.
So, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mine and your friendship was actually able to grow and prosper through Singing in the Rain, which was so cool because we knew each other, like we worked together and we had done a few like events and stuff here and there together. But I feel like because we were able to do Sing in the Rain together as an actor and a stage manager, it was just really able to like help grow our community and our bond together because that was an experience that we got to do together. So that was really cool.
Yeah, totally. And now we're getting to do Anastasia together.
Yes.
As besties.
Yeah.
Which is super cool. And I think that it's only going to like be even more fun this year. And it already has been amazing. So yeah, I'm super excited for that. Do you want to kind of talk about what an actor's point of view looks like when preparing for a show and then doing that show?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give you like the quick rundown of like, I guess like my point of view as an actor. So usually you find out what the show is and you decide if you want to audition for it or not, if you want to do it. And whenever you decide that you do want to do the show,
obviously, you always do.
Yeah, absolutely. You like research the show and figure out what character you want to audition for. And it's different in a lot of places, but I'm mainly just going to talk about like how it's been at SWU so far. So then I would scan a QR code and I would fill out my audition form and I would pick an audition time and then I would go in and audition with a song that like matched the character that I was auditioning for. And then if they choose to do it that year, then we go through callbacks, which is awesome too. And then after a short amount of time, then we get an official cast list. And then right after a cast list in the next like couple of days or so, then we get a read through, which is when we have the whole cast there for the first time and we just read through the show sitting down with like nothing else. It's awesome. And then once we hit that, then you really just you hit the ground running, basically. So then we would go through, honestly, about like 3 months of everything from dancing rehearsals to music rehearsals to blocking rehearsals, all this stuff, which is so amazing. And it's just, and then you have to, you know, memorize your lines, memorize your music, and so it doesn't just stop in those rehearsals. But yeah, so then once we hit the rehearsals, you know, everything is just going. And then you start to implement things like costumes and props and set pieces, and we start to run through scenes and do like full show run-throughs, which is just really awesome. And then around this time we hit something called Sits Probe, which is in rehearsal. We've been using like rehearsal tracks or like recordings and stuff, or like Dr. James and the piano. But now this is Sits Probe, means to just like sit and sing in German, I'm pretty sure. And so this is just a time where we implement the orchestra for the first time with the full cast, which is a great experience, to just be able to like hear the music come to life through actual instruments and not just a recording. And then right after we hit Sits Probe, we move into Tech Week, which you do a lot more for Tech Week than I do, but we go into Tech Week, which also known in the theater world as Heck Week.
Heck Week.
Because it's because it's absolutely crazy and you feel like you're running around like 24/7 and you don't get a break to breathe. But in Tech Week is whenever we do full run-throughs, hopefully without stopping, but that's with lights, sound, completely off book. You know, you have all of your costumes, all your props, the whole set, transitions. You're basically running it like an actual show at that point. And then here at SWU, we also do student nights on Wednesday, which is before we hit opening night, but we try to treat it like an opening night. Like we don't want to run it just like a rehearsal and stop it. And so we try to be able to do the full run through with those as well. And then another thing that actors have to hit is we hit something called call time, which is where Dr. James like sends us a time that we have to be like in Newton Hobson, and we have to be in our first costume, and we have to be fully mic'd and ready to go. And basically this is just like breathing process. You're getting set, you're getting ready for this like hour and a half to 2 hour show that you're about to do. And then we also go through something called mic check, which is honestly really fun. It's where the entire cast goes on the stage and you pick a song to sing. Most people pick songs or lines from the musical, but then we have some people who are very adventurous and they'll just do like a random song from a random musical that they love.
Or someone else's song.
Yeah, or someone else's song, and they'll do it really fun. Yeah. Absolutely. But basically it's just checking your mic to make sure that, you know, you have full battery and we're getting sound and we're not experiencing any feedback. So hopefully the mic can run as smooth as possible. Always a struggle, you know, always struggle. Awesome. But that's okay. And so then we would move into opening night, which is usually on Thursday for SWU. And then we would do a show Thursday night, a show Friday night, and then we would have 2 performances. On Saturday we would have a matinee, which is an afternoon show, usually around 2-ish. And then we have our regular 7 o'clock show that night. And then we close a show, and then at SWU, we stay up striking, which means completely tearing down the entire set and putting all the props back and get everything, like getting all the costumes put back where they need to go. And we completely take everything apart that night after we close the show, which that's different in a couple places. Like in high school, I would have strike on Sunday, but here at SWU, we stay up until 1 to 3 a.m. in the morning, striking a show.
Totally.
But yeah, and so I know that my point of view as an actor is very different than yours as a stagehand or a stage manager. So if you would like to give me your, your little run through about what you would do.
Yeah, so it is very different. Sometimes stage managers get to sit in on auditions, so that's a really fun aspect. And then sometimes it starts as early as like with the read through and like planning entrances and exits while actors are working on lines and singing and dancing and all that. Stage managers are planning entrances and exits, where props and set pieces are going to go, the flow of traffic backstage and where we're going to fit everything backstage, things like that. And so while actors are doing all of those things, stage managers and like stagehands are planning. Like that's the planning period. And then when we start doing run-throughs, it's really about putting it all into practice, all the things that you've planned. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
And then Tech Week, is all about working out the kinks, changing things if we need to, saying, hey, like this isn't enough time, we need to rethink some things. That's Tech Week. And then before like a show, every single night we do something called safety calls.
Yay!
So this is for if you have like a really big set piece or a really intricate thing that people have to do that could be dangerous if done incorrectly or without proper protocols. So we, for Singing in the Rain, had couch call, because if you've seen that show, they flip a couch. So every night before the show would start, we would put the couch out, and all the leads who go and flip the couch would practice doing that just to make sure they didn't need to change anything, their heads were in a good place for it, and they felt safe about it. So that's pretty cool. And then we set for the top of the show, so we put anything out on the stage that needs to be there when the curtain comes up. And then we make sure props and set pieces are where they need to be backstage. If people need to pick them up or move them, whatever, we make sure those are there. We make sure we have some first aid, we have some food, everything backstage for people who maybe have low blood sugar, like Mallory. And we just make sure it's like a nice and safe environment and that everything's where it needs to go so that when the show starts, it's ready. And then during the show, it's a lot of moving set pieces, making sure curtains are getting open for actors, making sure things are where they need to go, finding people sometimes if they disappear, sometimes children and sometimes adults aren't where they need to be. So just making sure people are where they need to be, they're doing what they need to be doing, and if there are any problems, sometimes microphones just don't like to listen to people and don't like to do what they're supposed to do. So we switch mics, or we here we have a headset so we can communicate with the booth and say like, hey, this person's mic isn't working, can we switch to a different mic, or things like that. So there's a lot of like behind the scenes stuff that goes on. And then we are also in charge of preparing for set teardown and making sure that props and set pieces get where they need to go after the show. So we are kind of in charge of that. There's a lot of things to do, a lot of things to make sure that we're doing backstage, but it's just a way to help the actors and everybody get through all that. So
absolutely. Awesome.
Yep. And then, obviously there's a lot of crossover between the two things, between actors and stage crew. So, just like working together, sometimes we have to help with costume changes, like quick changes. And then sometimes actors are even putting stuff, like moving set pieces. So there's a lot of crossover, and it's really fun to like make those bonds between actors and stage crew and like things like that.
Absolutely. To create a show, you also have to have lighting, sound, orchestra, directors, marketing, choreographers, costumers, and set designers.
There are so many different roles that go into creating a show. And so next time you go see a musical or a play or anything like that, make sure to look in your playbill at all of the people who have done stuff behind the scenes and give them some love as well, because they are also helping to keep everything running and make it run smoothly.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the time that we have for today, guys. So we are closing the curtain on this episode, and we will see you next time. Bye.